Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like to give a shout out to Danielle, Elena, Jeff, Mark, Martha, Sarah, Verena, Brenda, and Jennifer. Thank you for being patrons and making this podcast possible, and for helping build a community. For our first-time listeners, along with regulars who at this moment may not be able to sign up on Patreon, we understand. But you can still support this podcast via subscribing, sharing, giving 5 stars, and a positive review wherever you listen to podcasts on. So today's guest is a friend who, thanks to the pandemic, there's some positives that have come out from the pandemic, and this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So he is an interesting gentleman with a background that there's no way I can even dive into introducing this man or touching his background, but I'll just give you his name and then we'll just dive into his story. That's all I can do because his background is so deep and beautiful and fascinating. So without much further ado, I give you today's guest, Mariano Charles. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rafa. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing today?
Me. Fine. I'm fine.
Oh, I should have said Vigits.
Vigets, yeah, Vigets. We both share German's wife.
Yes, German spouses, and our German is terrible, but we're working on it. Our wives make fun of us for that, but yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have a beautiful name, Mariano Charles. Before we dive into where you were born and where you come from. Is there a story behind your last name being Charles?
Well, my last name was not Charles. A couple of generations ago, It was Charny. Charny. Like now it's Charles, like the name.
Yes.
For everybody that's listening. But it was Charny. It came from Russia.
Oh, interesting. I would have never thought that.
I mean, that's
the story. You know the meaning of that?
No, I don't know the meaning, but the thing is that my great-grandparents came from Russia to Argentina, but in the middle they went to England. So they went from Russia to England and from England to Argentina. So when they got to Argentina, they spoke Russian because in England they were not for a long time. They spoke Russian.
Yeah.
In Russia they have different letters,
Yes.
They didn't know how to spell Charny. So they got to Argentina. In those times, there was a lot of immigration. Argentina was taking people. And when my great-grandparents got there, people would write you, they would make you citizen in Argentina right away. Out of the boat,
Yes.
you would become a citizen. And they would write down your name. And they just heard Charlie, they said, coming from England, Charles, okay, that's it. So it was changed. It was not previously. Yeah, so it's weird now. It's easy when everybody when you talk to an airline or whatever, they say, "What's your last name?" Charles, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, they have Mariano and they have
your
Charles.
last name, yeah. Yeah, right. It's okay.
Yeah, it's like me. When people hear my last name is Harry, they're like, "What, Harry? Like Harry Potter? Harry Truman?" I say, "Yeah." Harry Belafonte? I say, "Yes." But it's a first name. I said, that's my family's last name. But also, my original last name is Ari. Ari.
Oh, that's your original.
Yeah, that's the original that I know of.
Okay.
But somewhere someone decided to change it. But I've heard one story I've heard was that either my great-grandfather or the one before great-great-great-grandfather, I don't know which one of them, but it's a great-great.
Yeah.
Said the white man he was working for was struggling, kept calling him Harry instead of Ari.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
that's one story, but nobody has really confirmed. The person who said it is the type of person who at 12 o'clock will tell you one thing and then it changes. So
Yeah.
that's the only version that I've
But it's
gone
nice.
with. But
It's
no
nice.
other person has confirmed in
It's
the
nice,
family.
Harry.
Yeah, but the other people in the family who there's some of my uncles who still go by ARI.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, there's that variation. So yeah, so I never really knew why there's like a large number of us because in my part of Nigeria, it's not common to see Harry as last name.
Yeah.
We have English last names, what we call English last names, like our names are considered English.
Yeah.
But if you go to the next state, there's a large clan of Harrys.
Uh-huh.
Harry is very popular there. It's a large clan. So if I meet someone from my region or who knows my region or my tribe here in America, and they see my last name, they think I'm from that large clan.
I would
That's
like
why-
to go to your region.
Oh, you like it there. There's too much.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have too much fun.
I would like to go there.
So now that you've said region, let's dive into your place of birth. And what was your childhood like?
My childhood.
So where were you born in your childhood?
Okay, I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1978. And well, of course, everything that was happening, I knew much later, right?
Yes.
Because I was
All
a
of us.
little baby and I didn't know. But well, how to make a summary, right? Okay, during the time that I was born, there was a dictatorship, right, in Argentina,
Yeah.
and my parents were kind of isolated. They had to be isolated because of their ideas, because they were persecuted. If you had any, they were young, right? They were 20 something,
Yeah.
and they were in college, and people with this kind of my parents had some socialist ideas, let's say, ideas about
It's okay.
equality.
They were activists.
Yeah, activists, but not like they just joined some group. I mean, they would persecute everyone. It's not that you had to be really an important person or activist.
Yeah.
If you just were friends of someone who was in some of those groups, you were going to be persecuted. Like, it was massive. That's why it's called a genocide. It was a genocide. So there was a genocide, and my parents were isolated. That's the context in which I was born.
So your parents were in hiding as when you were born.
Were doing a normal life,
Yeah.
but at the same time, no friends knew where they lived. No friends knew what the their last names were.
Wow.
Because that way no one could find them, and they could not relate. No one could prove a relationship between them and whatever socialist group.
Yeah. So
out
if you
there.
got arrested, you couldn't say these are the people who are in my association or I'm associated with. You couldn't be tied. By
Yeah, they
association
couldn't be
to-
tied, exactly. And
that must have been.
but so it was from 76 to 83, the dictatorship. Although there were many dictatorships during the last century in Argentina, 83 democracy came back and stayed until today. So everyone thought, okay, this is one more. They overthrow the government. They say, I'm the ruler.
Yeah.
And everyone thought, okay, that was one more, but it was not one more. There was a genocide. A lot of people died, disappeared. That's the technical name they used. Mothers of the disappeared would ask the journalists, the government, where are my kids? And the government officially would say, they're not dead. Cynical, right?
Yeah.
They would say, they're not dead, they're disappeared. Because they would disappear them. They would not kill them and hang the body back to the family. No, they were not taken
just-
legally in prison.
Yeah.
They would.
Somebody just takes you in the middle of the night.
The
and
government
that's
would
it.
take them. The military would take them. Torture them to tell where their friends are.
Yeah.
and then they would disappear them either in graves that they're still finding out where they are, or they would put them in planes and go to the river and throw them to the river. So there were dead bodies found in the coast, in the coast of Uruguay, and so the story had to be reconstructed. The bodies had to be found. They're still looking for the bodies, so they can hand them to the families, and the family can have a grave.
Yeah.
And well, the story is long. It's rough story, right?
It is rough. But it's interesting because, we had something similar. We only got our democracy, and I say that in quotes because it's still not officially a democracy, but we got ours in 99.
99.
Yes.
Okay.
And between Nigeria got independence in the 1960 and 63, there was a coup, and then between then up till the 70s, there was like military in between, and then there was one democratic, and then it's democratic, military. And then the guy who's president right now, he's also one of the guys who did military coup back then, and he was brutal.
Oh,
And he got reformed. People said he was reformed. I said,
he's changed.
He changed my ass. Yeah, right. So you can see what he's doing now as a democratic guy. He's literally repeating what he did as military. So, but the signs were there. But people who we don't do record keeping. So, some of the things which you just described, they happened. A lot of them happened in Nigeria but we didn't. I don't think people described it as disappearance. A lot of journalists got killed. Like this current president, he killed journalists, and it was disappointing to see the first Nobel laureate winner endorse him for his first term. He recounted the endorsement for the second term, but he was one of those who endorsed him, and he was one of the guys who this guy tried to kill. And so you see people like that, but these are the ones you hear of, the ones that are popular, the people who are known, So if those are the ones that you know of, then the people who don't have any popularity, who don't have anybody backing them, who nobody's telling their stories, because there are countless cases of people like that who, in the middle of the night, you just had the police or the army just show up, bust your doors, your son. You just grab your son. Why are you taking my child? Why are you taking my husband? Why are you taking?
There has not been justice.
Who are you gonna go to for justice?
I had to say that in Argentina there was a very good justice process after that. I wouldn't say justice has been made, not at all, but people were judged. People that was involved, judged. They were
tried, and
there was a trial, many trials. The trials kept going for a lot of time until this still going on.
Good. But it should be like that. It's something which, the way our system works, it's kind of the way people talk about it. It's like, oh, forgive and forget. God will take care of it. I'm like, what God is that? We fought a civil war into the 70s in the 70s. No, was it 70s? Mid 60s into the 70s. We just had the 51st anniversary of when the civil war ended, and there are still crimes from that war that never got addressed, and it's just like the losing party. It's like, oh, you guys lost, but so deal with it, kind of thing.
Oh, that's so bad.
And those guys still have issues to this day. That's why they are still trying. Now there's a big movement amongst them that they want to get out. And I say, yes, I support them. They have a case. They have a case because You never addressed anything for why they tried to get out in the first place.
I think it's very important
So
to address those issues.
if you don't address it in the
otherwise
beginning,
the problem persists.
it's like a wound.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
you don't treat it, then it starts to rotting and
Exactly.
expand, and then it gets worse and wide and wide and
Exactly.
wide and wide. And you can put a bandage around it and say, I treated it. But you didn't treat it. You didn't touch anything. You just wrapped it and said, it's covered.
Let me tell you, Chile, the country next to us,
Yes.
did that. They kind of did some cosmetic and said,
Yeah.
let's move the page. And that's how they kept going until today. And they have a lot of issues.
So I wish people will understand, because there are a lot of Nigerians who don't like it when I say we have to fix those issues.
Yeah.
Otherwise, an inevitable war is going to come. It's just because there are people who are going to take advantage of the wound that's
Exactly,
there. There are people just waiting to take advantage. It's ripe for them. That's why it's best you treat it, because if you don't treat it, it's going to look. It's a magnet. It's just a magnet for the trouble.
Instability.
Yeah. So
Instability, yeah.
it's part of the problems, and I wish people will understand. So let's move away from the darkness a little bit and come to some light.
Okay.
So we are leaving your parents, and we're going to focus on you. So in the midst of this, so now we're coming to the stuff you remember as a child. We're
Yeah.
going to come to the stuff you remember as a child. So in that early childhood of yours, you know, you still got to play with other kids, mingle with other children.
Yes, but-
because you didn't really know what was happening. You didn't understand what was happening.
Exactly.
Because as children, we didn't know what was what. We didn't know who was who. So from that period, did you have any favorite childhood memory, or was it much later in life you had a favorite childhood memory?
You mean if I had a fear?
No, what would you consider your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, favorite childhood memory. Nothing. Well, it has nothing to do, of course, with.
Of course. That's why I said we are moving away from your parents and all that.
Yeah. I would say the trips. Well, we talked about this, but I would say that the trips I would make with my family to my mother was born in the countryside in a province called Santa Fe, so we would go there every now and then, and the trips in the car and being with family there.
How far is that from
It's for
Buenos Aires?
5 hours.
Oh, by drive, right?
Yes, 4.5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember that as being nice. Yeah, and yeah, we really enjoyed being in. I really enjoyed the traveling. I would say, now that I'm thinking about it, I kept doing that for a long time.
I don't think there was any time I did not enjoy traveling with the family. The only thing I didn't enjoy about traveling then was because I was the youngest person in the house. I was always in the middle of the car, and I wanted to be by the window. So I don't know. I just always wanted to be by the window. So even now, when I travel as an adult, I always want to be like in the plane. I want to be by the window.
Me too. People say I want aisle. I want window.
I want window. I want the window seat.
Yeah.
So I guess it started from being a kid. I was always in the middle.
And if I have to go to the bathroom, I'm sorry. I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but it was. Yeah, I always wanted to see what was happening outside. And yeah, I remember one time we were traveling. I can't remember what city we were going to. Because my mom had to travel a lot. She was a federal civil servant, and part of her job included going to monitor projects in other states and cities around the country. And on one of those trips, you know, when I was looking out into the bushes and while we're on the highway, I saw a monkey jumping between branches, and I was just like, I see wildlife. It's like I'm seeing wildlife, because I just think those things they don't exist in Nigeria, because I only see them on TV and in like documentaries, and it's like, well, I got to see one. I was just happy.
Yeah.
I couldn't shut up in the car today. They had to tell me to shut up.
Yeah.
I was just exploding for joy. Like, oh, I saw a monkey jumping between branches. Wow. I
Yeah.
want to see more of this stuff. And she can't just shut up. Like, just. But I just got excited, But yeah, it was good to travel and see other places and just see the rivers and streams. Everything. I also love seeing rivers every time we're traveling. Seeing other places. So staying with your childhood, what also what were the stuff that you got engaged in for fun? Because that was a different time compared to kids of today. It's a different world for them.
Yeah.
But your time, you came like what 4 years before me. I'm an '82,
Yeah.
so yeah, but it was still similar to we're in the same age range. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, what did you do for when you went out to play?
Well, when I was a kid, what we would do is we would play with the kids in the neighborhood. That's what we would do. That lived next door, in front, kids in the
Or
neighborhood.
your favorite games or
we
sports?
we
or
would
whatever?
either play soccer in the street. Well, there were no cars going through in the weekends.
Oh yeah.
It was like it was Buenos Aires, but at the same time, in the weekends, no cars would go by those streets. We were not in downtown, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, it's
Everything is
impossible.
jam-packed.
There's no kids playing in the street. This cars are all the time, traffic, the city grew so much. So yeah, we would either play soccer. I remember a car would go through and we'd say, "Oh, let's move the ball," and we would go back, and either that or riding bicycles. That's what we would do. Ride
Yeah,
bicycles.
that's the only thing I can't do yet.
Oh yeah, I have to teach you that.
Yeah, you have to teach me that.
Yeah, yeah.
By the time I left Nigeria in 2007, I had to move to Lagos where the embassy was, or the consulate now. The embassy is in Abuja. And for my for where I was living in Lagos, it was common in many neighborhoods in Lagos. We played street soccer on Sunday. I didn't play, but most people played street soccer. I'll be watching, and there was no traffic on that street. It's like Sunday they closed. There was a gate, and they just shut that gate, and no traffic came through. No, they shut the gate until 12 noon, and I think after 12 noon they opened the gate or one part of the gate, but still it just seemed like there was an unwritten rule that no traffic came through, and they just played soccer until about 4, from like 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. They were just playing,
Wow.
and boys and adults who wanted to play with the boys, you pick a team of three, I think three aside or four aside. If there were too many people, then it was four aside. They had small, we call it monkey post,
Uh-huh.
and there's no goalkeeper, or if there's a goalkeeper, no goalkeeper. It was too small to have a goalkeeper.
Yeah. We
So
wouldn't have a
so
goalkeeper.
yeah,
That's too
and
fancy.
if I think either he played for up to about 10 minutes. If it was tied, then it was penalty shootouts, which meant you take the ball like 20 feet from the goalpost with your back to the post, and you hit the ball with your back to the post, and whoever scored,
Yeah.
that was the winner of it was sudden death penalties, and yeah, so it was just like cars didn't come through that street for that day on Sunday,
Yeah.
but every other day cars came through. But you could tell that a car will come through while playing, and then they will remove the goalpost.
Yeah, you
But
hear
it was
the engine.
yeah. But you could tell that it was somebody who wasn't familiar with that unwritten rule, because the person was, why you put on the street, and then they start cussing the driver of the car.
Yeah.
Then you see, like, because parents are watching, because you see the old man and all the old men come out, sit in front of their house watching kids playing. So if an adult tries to bully a kid, they can cuss you out. Like, why you not ashamed of yourself? You want to fight a young boy?
Oh,
That kind of thing.
yeah.
So if a car is passing and the driver is insulting the kids, you see the bunch of old men will be cussing you out, and then he wasn't aware of that rule. That's why he drove on this street. You're not supposed to drive on that street.
You made me remember of carnival. We had some carnival days, and we would throw water in those little you put water in a little balloon,
Yeah.
right? And you throw it to other kids. Well, we would throw it to cars with drivers and buses, and we
As kids, we were,
yeah.
we did.
we got in so much
Oh, wow.
trouble.
So Buenos Aires is a big city, right?
Yeah, big city.
And was it just Argentinians that were in your community, or were there people from other countries around you?
Argentinians, just Argentinians. No, a couple of generations in Argentina. Yeah.
Okay.
Minimum a couple of yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when was your first exposure to people from other parts of South America when you were in Buenos Aires? When was the first time you met other South Americans or people from other countries?
I mean, people from other countries you meet every day, like in shops, like for example, fruit, vegetable shops are owned mostly by people from Bolivia in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. Yeah, so supermarkets, small supermarkets, Chinese.
Wow.
So you meet people from other countries all the time. There's a large Bolivian and Peruvian community in Argentina. But if you ask me when I engaged really with other communities, or I mean, also in high school, in school, maybe there was one guy from Korea, and I would be friends with, with someone that would. I always had this need, this how do you say this curiosity or this tendency to engage with people from other parts of the world with different cultures. Naturally, it just came out that way for me. But eventually, when I got older and I got into music, I engaged with other communities in a more deeper way. Let's say.
Well, how did that? What attracted you to music? Like, who were the inspirations that? What was that moment that brought you into the music side of things?
I started with percussion. Percussion is what brought. But
was that at home, or was it on TV, or did something happen that made you pick that instrument?
Well, it was a cry. I think it was a personal crisis that was not exploding yet, but it was starting. It had to do with my professional, let's say, career. I was studying engineering. I was finishing.
Okay, so this was after college.
After college, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I studied piano. When I was in primary school.
Yeah.
Elementary school. But it was something that my mother took me, and I liked it, and I learned a lot. And I even remember when I started studying much later in life. But I started, but when I grew up, when I was older, I wanted to study again, right? By myself, not because my mother would take me, right? And
you wanted to develop a passion for something.
Yeah, no, but I think it had to do with some crisis, like professional crisis. Like I was studying engineering, it was okay. I was passing the exams, it was not bad, but I was not finding myself in that world, in engineering companies, and I think I even was maybe working in a company, in a big company, and I was in these offices with computers one next to the other. Suddenly, I felt like this is prison. I felt like I mean, it was not for me. I would be in those. I would be in this company, working, and I wouldn't work. I would just live and go talk to that guy. I would take my mate. In Argentina we drink mate. If you
I've heard of mate.
Yeah.
I can't recall what it is, but I've heard of mate. The more you said it, I know it's in my database.
I was more interested in engaging with other people, knowing their lives. I was not interested. I was in a telecommunications company that was, and I didn't really care about if they sold more minutes or more internet or more whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was needing some to express something, to engage in some creativity thing, space. I needed some creativity to explore that area. creativity, music. So I told my brother-in-law at that time. My brother-in-law had a friend that was a percussion teacher, and I said, let's go take a class. And that's how it started. And we took a percussion class.
And what was that like the first time you held the percussion?
Well, it was great. It was like freedom, you know? It was like, wow. Well, we would smoke a joint during the class. It was like, oh. So, it opened a door to being happy, you know, having a good time, doing something creative, and I needed it, Eventually, I'll tell you the end of the story. I quit my professional career in a way, right? It was too boring. And
It wasn't you.
it was not. Yeah, I mean, I could do it. I had the skills, you know,
But it just wasn't you.
yeah, it was not me.
I've had one of the guests who I call him my Uncle G. You know, he's the oldest guest I've had on the podcast, and I talked to him a few weeks. No, I talked to him a few days ago, and he's a retired architect now, and you know, back in the '60s, when he was in the top college in the top university in India, he had gone in for engineering,
Yeah,
and he had a similar problem too. It's not like he's a very intelligent guy, book smart and everything, but he said, yeah, it was the wrong path for him. It was the wrong path, and he told the school, like, yeah, he told his professors, this is not, no, this is just, he felt it within him, and you know, it's not everybody who's bold enough to take that step. It's difficult for some
yeah,
people
it's so hard. It's so
because
hard.
we're not trained to take that step, because it's like, what about,
Exactly.
how will you survive?
It's so hard.
What
It's
about
so
this?
hard.
Why
It's
would
so
you
hard.
do that? Why?
It's so
But
hard.
manage. And in in Nigeria, the language we use is manage. You know, okay, I understand what you're saying, but manage, just endure. That's how I was raised. That's what I was raised with. But he said, you know, he met the right person who said, okay, but you must promise this. And you know, someone challenged him, and he said he loves challenges. So he said, yeah, and he took architecture, which that's where he found his passion, and he found this himself in, and he went with that. But and I know another guest I've had who did something similar, but in a different field, and you know, and I've met other people like that. It's it's just, you know, within ourselves we get that message,
Yeah.
but the way we've been raised, sometimes, you know, the messaging we've been given can always be like, you're already on this path, see it to the end. Yes, it's not working for you. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, you're being drowned in it. You're losing yourself. You're depressed and everything, but you're getting paid.
Yeah.
So die there. The next thing, when you come back in your next life, we'll figure the rest. You get the next one. Don't worry. And then you just see somebody changing into a shell of themselves, and you know, and I mean, some people can make it work, but yeah, it's not. I can't advise somebody to go that path. So I'm always happy when I hear someone was able to recognize and broke free out of it.
Yeah.
Because
But I really had to go into crisis, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. It was hard because you really, I think that, like, when you can tell sometimes when you have a problem, when someone else has a problem, but my conclusion is that you never change until you really hit the bottom and you really get deep in the crisis. Until you get to the bottom of it, you're really fucked up. You don't change. You don't change because you know, oh, I have to change this. Like, let's say you eat too much or whatever you do, you don't change until you are sick. That's what I think generally happens with everyone in this life. And with myself, right? until I was in a deep crisis with myself, I didn't really make the move because until I didn't have a choice. Right?
You exhausted your choices, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now I have no option but to
Yeah.
address what
Yeah,
needs to be
I was in the
addressed.
office looking out the window. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound good what I'm gonna say, but that's what I was feeling at the moment. I would see a poor person carrying whatever in the street, and I would say, but he's free. He can move that way. He can go that way. It's not right. I mean, it's not like that. Of course, he's not free in a lot of ways, but I was feeling like that. I was feeling like in a prison. That's why I was getting those.
I get what you're saying, and I've I've seen people who I look at them and I'm like, damn, this guy got a great job, you got money and all that, and then they start talking like that too, and I'm like, wait, what? And it's interesting when people talk like that, and yeah, there's I've someone told me a few months ago, some almost the same language. This guy is like it's a job that I know someone who tells me almost every time we talk that he will kill for a job like that. And in the back of my head, I'm always saying like, but I know someone who's just said he wants to get out of this job. That the money is fantastic and everybody he wants to get out.
Yeah,
He's looking for a way out. He needs a different career. He needs something. I was like, wow, wow.
Yeah,
It's
and
just so. Yeah, and I'm not saying people shouldn't do I'm like everybody has their parts. And
yeah,
that's the point I like to make people like, it's for you to
and
discover your path. And if your path is in that field, I'm not saying, yeah, because, engineering wasn't for you, but engineering is for other people.
yeah,
And if then, and it's just for you to discover your path. And that's the
yeah,
message
yeah,
that
yeah,
people have to realize. Because I've seen, at one time I used to be like, I can't do something where I'll be in front of a microphone. I was afraid.
yeah,
I was afraid, but I always love hearing people's story. I always love talking to people and, sharing with people. And look how long it will take me to finally admit that, yes, I can do it. I should be doing it.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But I try to run
yeah,
away
yeah,
as
yeah.
far as possible from it.
Wow, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So interesting.
but one day I came home and Verena looked at me and said, "The smile on your face every time you come back from recording, I've not seen you like with that smile from anything you're doing, and
Yeah, yeah,
any
yeah.
other you don't act like
Then
that.
you know then you know
And
what's right.
that's the mirror that I don't always look into. I don't always look at. So sometimes we need to hear that.
Yeah.
So yeah. But there's one more question I need to ask before we go on a short break. Um, Before you got to that engineering part, because it involves the engineering, but I think before you got into this crisis, the one thing that led to you getting into the crisis was when you decided to go to university. You have told me you struggled on your university. You were trying to decide
Totally,
on
totally,
what to
totally.
study, or.
Not that I struggled. I don't know. I feel like everybody, most people should feel the same way about it. When you finish high school, what do you know? What do you know? What you want to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people do know, but generally, do you know what you want to do? Well, in my case, I didn't have a clue. I didn't know, but like I mean, maybe then there's is when my problem started because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I would like my daughter to know what she wants to do, of course.
Do I want our kids to be
Yeah, right.
different?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make her know. What's up? What am I gonna do to make her know? I don't know. But the thing is that I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I don't know. And my girlfriend at the time said, I said, oh, there's a university there that they do engineering. Why don't you try it? Why don't you try? My girlfriend at the time said, okay, let's go write down your name and apply for it. So I got in without choosing it.
Yeah.
I got in the university, and I started studying. The first exam it was horrible, but then I wanted to prove myself that I could do it, right? So I studied, and then I started having great grades, right? I was doing great, and I was liking it. I didn't like engineering, the mathematics, physics, but I knew I could if I studied.
Yeah.
Everything was okay, and I could hang out with the people that was
Yeah.
there. But I was interested is in hanging out with other people.
That the
So
university life was
and
interesting
people
to
would
you.
respect me, and I would be because I would have good grades because I would study and I would pass the exam. People were like, "Oh, can you help me with this?" And I felt like useful, in the university. So, but not because I liked engineering, but it's because I liked engaging with other people, and so I had a good time in the university. I liked it, but then when I had to work as an engineer, then the
Then
problem
became
became
different.
Yeah, exactly.
Reality setting.
Yeah.
All right. We shall take a quick break and return back shortly. Hi, everyone. Your host, Raphael Harry here. I can't believe we've gone past our 1-year anniversary of doing White Label American. I've had the privilege of speaking with some amazing people, sharing their modern day immigrant stories. And you've allowed this Nigerian immigrant to share parts of his immigrant journey through this podcast. Also, one of my goals of this podcast is breaking down artificial walls that keep people from getting to understand each other. Based on your wonderful feedback over the last year, I think we have done a decent job in breaking down some of those walls. We would like to continue and expand on this mission, but we need your help. I've had an amazing time creating and producing episodes for this show largely on my own. We have a lot of ideas for new and exciting content to expand upon the mission, but we need direct support from you, our listeners, which is why we have created a White Label American Patreon page where you can make a one-time donation or become a sustaining contributor where you can get access to exclusive content, help me interview upcoming guests by submitting questions, and even have the chance to sit down with me for a one-on-one conversation, either virtually or in studio. So if this podcast means something to you, and if you really love this show, think about becoming a sustaining contributor and donating by going to patreon.com/whitelabelamericans.pod. Thanks for listening and for the privilege of your company. So welcome back. And so when you were that point you made about after high school we don't really know what we want to study. Yeah, you took me back to when I got out of high school, and it's no lie. And for me, I think that also played a role in why I never tried to pursue anything that I was happy in or like where I found my joys. But I was thinking about, what will pay me the most money or what will secure me financially. That's just where my mind was,
Oh,
to be honest. Because when we got out of high school, we didn't know careers. The word careers were not an existence. Were not in existence for us. But what we had were, I don't know if it's similar in Argentina, but for us in Nigeria, it's, they start drumming it into you. You either become a doctor, you become an engineer, you become a lawyer, or accountant. I've forgotten the fifth one, but it's like the big five. If you're not one of those top big fives,
yeah.
then maybe you go join the military and think of how you become a general and plan a coup.
Or you could be a priest. This man,
Oh,
a
well,
priest.
the priest got knocked out pretty early in my life because I think I was between age 8 and 10. And I one time said to my mom, I want to be a priest. And my mom was like, oh, that's good. She was happy. Yes. So you won't get married, right? I said, what? You mean I can't touch women anymore? And I was pretty young, but I guess, well, yeah,
You knew already that was not for you.
yeah, that was the first. They knew, I was clear I was going to be causing scandals if I was going to be a priest. So, well, good thing was going to be with adults, not kids. So, at least. So, on that aspect, I'll say yeah. But yeah, as soon as my mom said that you're not going to get married, I said, what? That's when I realized that priests, the Catholic priests, because we're Catholics. Catholic priests don't get married. And I was like, oh hell no, rule that out. You couldn't mention priest to me. I would have hit you, whatever. I would have hit you with something. But every other thing was like, yeah, doctor, engineer, lawyer.
Yeah.
And even when I had said, oh, I want to be a sports person, they cussed me out, chewed me out. Yeah. So with time, you didn't realize that there were careers, there were other things I could do. There were so many things out there. All the stuff that had interest in, none of that appeared to me as something that I could be doing or I could pursue. So, but when that big five is being beat into your head, that's all you start thinking about. And then you're like, well, I'm not really strong in mathematics and the science. So I don't want to do something that I'll be playing around those two 24/7. So disqualified doctor.
Yeah.
Then I'll disqualify. What else do I disqualify? And then I start disqualifying. So now I'm not thinking about what do I like doing. But, and then...
Oh, you made that question to yourself.
Yeah, I'm already telling myself I can't...
That's a whole step.
I can't be a doctor.
I couldn't do.
I couldn't be a doctor. But then life will happen, and then I moved to the United States, and I joined the Navy, and in the Navy, I get a chance to go to school. The government will pay. I said, okay. But what am I going to do now? Back to this square one again. Okay, how do I avoid mathematics and science? That's all I'm thinking about. But I need to make money. So, business. But I don't want too much maths. And so, but dude, but that's where my mind was going. But I don't want to be an accountant. But not one time did I ask myself, what do you like?
Oh, okay.
What do you enjoy doing, or where do you have that experience? Or no. It didn't occur to me.
Me, the same with me. Yeah.
So, but if looking back, I can tell you that it's something that has been built in my brain for a long time. Like, these are the 5 careers you must pick from here. You must aim for this. And even though I said I'm not going for those 5, but somewhere in the back of my head, I was going for those 5. So I'm not always thinking outside of those 5. And then later on, I'm wondering, why did I go for business administration when I'm like, not really, So like, I'd been offered a job in an accounting department of a law firm. I had my internship there, and the fantastic people there, I worked there. But dude, I was struggling. I could do the job. I did the job. No, I did it fine. All the projects I was given, I did it, knocked it out. But yeah, it was boring. I struggled. I didn't have any passion for doing that. They were like, they offered me a job, and I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
And then with my disabilities too, from military, it doesn't help with too much light on me. But but that aside, I didn't see how coming in here 24. Like, man, this is not. It's not. But it will take me when I finally looked in the mirror and said, "Who are you? What do you like? What do you want to do? Is this you want to do? You want to work in an accounting department? You want to work? Is that where the goal is aimed at?" And when I started addressing those questions, and I was like, yeah, nah, that's not me. So I just had to rule myself out of those fields. And yeah, I don't have any regrets because I learned something from all those experiences. So it's something to me, but and I can share it with other people going forward. But so I think when you said you don't want your daughter to be able to know what to pick up, I don't think we'll be able to give them the exact picture, but we can at least share our experience and say, look at the mistakes we made.
Yeah.
So you have a better idea going forward about the mistakes not to
Yeah,
make.
I'm like with her, and she picks up a toy and says, "Oh, maybe she likes this because I'm always thinking, oh, what does she like? I'm gonna encourage her." Like, no, it's kind of
It's too early. It's
an
too early.
obsession.
Uh, uh, so let's see. You while in college, was it was it when you got into music that you met your former wife or?
Yes. Year 2000, I
Mhm.
was in college. I was in
Okay,
college through friends that I had in college.
all right. So that will now lead to another big experience in your life, and you dealt with something that many people are not able. Many people still struggle with, and I was wondering if you would like to share how that whole journey, went for you.
Well, it's maybe hard to make a summary. Well, I met my wife, previous wife, former wife, in the year 2000 through friends in college that I had in college. Um, I mean, it was a relationship like any other relationship. We were together for 18 years.
She's Argentinian too.
She was born in Venezuela, but she
Okay.
was Argentinian. Her parents were Argentinian. Well, she was born in Venezuela because her parents left Argentina during the dictatorship.
Oh, okay. So you guys had that in common, but
I mean, yeah,
your
everybody in
parents stayed.
Argentina has that in common, right? Either you exiled within the country or you went to another country. So something you had to do, unless you were with them,
That's true.
right?
Makes sense.
Um, so, I mean, it was a normal relationship that had a terrific ending, right? Well, I don't know if you want to jump into the ending, but
Well, it's the
otherwise,
ending I was asking about because I know it's tough, but you, I admire the way you came out of it because I know people who are not. It's something that many people struggle with, going through grief,
oh yeah, oh yeah,
and
that's a whole thing.
it's something that if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. We'll,
No,
we'll
no,
cut it
for
out.
me
But
it's fine. It's great, and I'm happy sharing my experience, and that's why I like talking to people and sharing my experience because that helped me.
yeah,
Sharing my experience helped me. I know it might help other people, right? But it helped me, right? And so I was doing it for others, but for myself also. Whenever I have the chance, I talk about it. Um, yeah, but grief is not easy, and I could not advise anyone on how to deal with it. I can just tell you my
yeah,
experience.
that's all you're
I
doing.
don't have a method. And
Well,
don't know.
before we jump ahead, for the audience, your former wife passed away,
Passed away, yeah.
and it wasn't easy on you because she was young.
Yeah.
You guys were, even though you had been together for 18 years, you guys were still a young couple.
Yeah, we're 40 years old.
Yeah. So uh, it's even if you guys had been together for a long, long time, it's still it's not easy on the couple, on anyone losing a loved one. I lost my uncle when I was the closest uncle I had in my family when I was that was 2005. No, 2000 no 2004. I'm sorry, 2004. And I never dealt with that grief. I didn't know how to deal with grief. I never knew how to. Nobody had. I'd heard of death. This person died. Okay, that person died, but it didn't. It wasn't personal to me. So he was the closest person to me that passed away, and I saw him on Tuesday, I was supposed to go see him on Friday, and I was supposed to go see him on Friday afternoon, and he died Friday morning.
Mm.
And while I think I was getting ready to go to his place, and a cousin came to our place, and she claimed she wasn't aware that I was close to that uncle, but she was talking like he was someone distant, like she had never seen him before come to the house, and she was like, "Oh, do you know?" She was talking to other people in the house, and she was like, "Do you know that this man just died? I heard that this lawyer just died." And I was sitting down there like she was talking like it was someone distant, somebody who it's just like in the news just happened, like news just came out, and I'm like, "Wait, why? How? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Oh, the man just died this morning." I'm so surprised. He's a young man. He was just 44 years old. And I'm like, "You're talking about my uncle?" And she's like, oh, yes, that's true. You're close to him." I was like, "Do you want me to punch you or something? What the heck? How you know I'm always with this guy almost every week. I was at his house, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm gone. I was always hanging out at his place." It's like, "Oh, that's the guy you always going out to see. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't. Oh, I wouldn't have just come in and said it like that if I'd known." "So you haven't heard the news? I didn't know you haven't heard." But it just seemed like something switched off in me. But I didn't know how to process the whole emotions I was going through, and I just walked away and called another cousin of mine, and she said, "Yes, it's true. He passed away. I didn't know how to call you and tell you, but yeah, uh, I'm with his wife now." And I was like, "Do you want to talk to his wife?" I was like, "What am I going to say? I, I don't know. I've never done that in my life. I've never, that was the first time I had to talk to someone whose husband just died. I, there was, yeah. So I froze. And I didn't talk to that woman for probably 4 or 5 months. I didn't know what to do. And I was judging myself. It just felt like I ran away. Like only when the going was good, I showed up to her house, and she saw me, and so I felt ashamed. And one day she saw me on the street when she was with the kids. She was driving, and she stopped, and I just ran and said hi, but I couldn't even look her in the eye. But I just didn't know what to say. I couldn't go to the funeral. I just nobody consoled me, and nobody said anything, but it just felt like I didn't matter. So I was just there, and I just went to a bar and drank, and sat down with the boys, acted like nothing. I'm tough. Nothing happened. I'm good.
Mm.
But inside me, I was broken because he was the first person in the family who had addressed me and said, "You're not a kid anymore, so they shouldn't be talking to you like that. The people shouldn't be abusing this boy." And he stood up for me, and it would feel good to have someone like that in my corner.
Mm.
And now he's gone, and I never knew how to process that. So it would take years for me to even come close to knowing how to process something like that. And it just, so it's tough, and the next time I will even properly, the closest I will come to dealing with grief like that was when my shipmate would take his life. One of my shipmates took his life, and I thought I'd caught it before because he had been talking about, he had been giving signs on Facebook, putting signs up there, like he just kept talking about, if I disappear, nobody would care about me, something like that. He would just make a status, and I'm like, this guy is giving. Is it giving the signs of he's about to do something like this? I don't think he would do it. So he'll write something cryptic like that again. And then one day I reached out to him, like, "Hey man, I've been seeing your status, and nobody comments or anybody asks, is everything okay? I just noticed people, it just seemed like everything was normal from the people were commenting on it." So I just wrote to him like, "Hey man, is everything good? I see your Facebook status updates. It doesn't look right." He's like, "Oh, thank you, bro. Thank you, bro. Everything is good." I said, "Are you sure? I'm here. I know we're in the closest people in the Navy, but I see what you're writing, and I'm worried. But if you don't want to talk to me, I know your best friend from when we're in the Navy, and I'll get her. I know she's not on Facebook anymore. So I went and contacted her. I found somebody who knew her number, and I told her what he was writing. And she said, yeah, that's troubling. So she said she will reach out to him, and she reached out to him, but she never gave me feedback. He was homeless when he was writing that stuff. And unfortunately, I don't know how they discussed, but it seemed like he was going to move into a house. She has a house. She lived in a different state, and then he never did. It would take like a year later, and then he would take his life. So when he now took his life, and then another shipmate will call me and say, "Oh, this guy, this what happened," and I was like, "Dang it! Maybe I should have continued following up," and so I was like blaming myself. And until I went to therapy, and the therapist was like, it wasn't my fault. I'm not the one who killed him. I shouldn't look at it that way, But
Oh, you went to therapy.
well, yeah, I'm still in therapy, man. I'm still in therapy. It's I don't have to wait until everything is exploding before I go. I do therapy all the time.
Yeah.
So it's that's how I started learning how to deal with grief, and it's still something I'm working on. But I share that because you got to deal with a much more personal grief,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's something that I was surprised when you shared that with me, and I was like, wow, this is it's something that I appreciate you sharing that. So if you want to give the audience details on it, that's fine. If you don't want to, it's okay. But
Yeah, it's okay. It's hard,
It is.
but the facts are that my wife took his life 2018 after having a mental disorder triggered by the murder of her brother in Tampa, Florida, by a crazy guy. So it's like a crazy story.
Yeah.
Craziness all over. So there was this guy that was crazy. That one day he was talking, and I saw the Instagram that he had at the time, right when it happened, and he was talking like to the devil, to the camera, to the devil.
Wow.
You want this to happen. You want something to happen. Blah, blah. So he was like decided to do something wrong that day.
Yeah.
And he was with his car, and he happened to go in this road in Tampa where my brother-in-law was living, and he was with his two kids riding bicycles in a Sunday afternoon. My brother-in-law was taking them to the ice cream store. And this guy was in the same moment going through that road and crossed them and said, okay, I'm going to kill them. And he turned around and went with his car through the three of them.
Wow.
I don't know how to say, but with his
He
car.
ran over
them.
Wow.
He ran over them. So my brother-in-law was riding his bike, and so his two kids were 8 and 3 years old.
Yeah.
The one that was 3 years old was in a bike connected to his. And the other 8-year-old was alone in his own bike, so he could kind of get away a little better.
Some space.
But so the two kids finally were fine, although the little one was covered in blood.
Oh, no.
My brother-in-law was not dead, but was unconscious in the floor, and the 8-year-old was the one that had to see that, go ask for help to a neighbor, and so they called the ambulance. Helicopter came, 2 ambulances, and the mess, and that's when it all started like that. And then, they told the mother of my wife what was happening. So the mother of Peter, my brother-in-law that died. So my wife got to know that, and I didn't. I mean, that was the first time I had to deal with a close death. That was not so close because it was not my brother. It was my brother-in-law. But I didn't really know how to. It's not easy. How do you know, right? So I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what grief was. I didn't know. So the thing is that when we were in Argentina, right, in Buenos Aires. So we went to Tampa to the funeral, and my wife had started having some strange behaviors. I would say aggressive, a little bit aggressive. Started being aggressive, but I was like, okay, it's her brother was just killed. I mean, I'm not going to charge her, right?
Yeah.
But she was having some strange behaviors, like, okay, I'll tell you the finally what happened is that she was going through. I think because there was no time, because 4 months after that she killed herself, so there was no time to diagnose, right, from a doctor. But I think she was going through a bipolar episode. I don't know if you know anything about bipolar
I have a shipmate who
disease or whatever.
I have a shipmate who suffers from that, and while in the Navy, when I first met her, it felt like I met her in the one night, and the way she talked to me, I was like, "Oh, this person is cool." And then next day, I met her, and I was like, "This damn bitch."
Yeah.
That was After that, I just hated the person, and then now when we talk, it's like we're cool. We can talk for like 1 hour, but I understand now. But for a long time, I just hated her. But because I just felt like she was absolutely rude and evil to me.
Yeah. They can become.
God, it would.
But the thing is that my wife, it was her first episode. Generally, it happens before that they have an episode and then they come out of it and then they have another one. That was the first time I even knew something was happening. I thought my wife was totally healthy, and I mean it was totally normal. All of a sudden, I had to deal with that. So I had to deal with understanding what mental health is, at the same time that I had to deal with my wife killing herself, so grief. So I had to go through understanding a lot of things, what the mind does. So the end is right that she killed herself.
Yeah.
And I was, I mean, it was hard also because I was in the same apartment. I was taking a shower while she did that.
Oh wow.
So I got out of the shower and she was not there, and the security guard called me and said, "Yeah, it happened." So because the last 2 months I was, hey, something is going wrong with her. So they kind of knew something was going on, but no one, I didn't know that was a possibility. I didn't consider that she would. I didn't consider that was a possibility. Not at all. So maybe now knowing what happened, of course, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have considered it. I was. It's different than the case that you told me about, the guy that was sending messages through Facebook. This was totally different. She was like,
it's different for everybody.
She was like, but it's okay.
It's different, but I mean, we can all we can do now is maybe I should have, maybe I did
exactly,
but it's not really helping because it's happened.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is you came out of of falling into depression, of going down, because many people would have looked at it and said, "Oh, I wish if only I had done this, she wouldn't have,
Yeah.
if only I had oh, maybe if I had not taken a shower, maybe she wouldn't, or maybe maybe if I delayed for 2 minutes or 1 second, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you didn't put yourself in that mental state of bringing yourself down, because there are people who have put themselves down to the point of taking their own lives too,
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah,
after.
yeah. I
So
mean, I have to be honest. I was blaming myself,
which I consider
but I
human.
also knew that shit happened, right?
Yeah.
Her brother was murdered. I mean, I was not
Which is
denying,
tough. It's
which is
tough.
tough.
Yeah.
And it was a fact that she was having some mental issues at that time. But I did, of course, I did blame myself. I did, and it's really hard to
You're human.
ever
You are
say,
human. You are human. I think it would be weird if you didn't have those emotions. If something like that happened to you and you didn't go through emotions like that, it would be, yeah, it would be weird for you to just, oh, I'm fine, everything's okay. If I was your friend, I would go check into an institution immediately.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I was your father, brother, or sister, I would just go, like, yeah, please admit him. That's it. Because nobody's 100% fine. Something like that happens to them.
Well, now that you're saying that, when that happened with my brother-in-law, when he was killed, that is one thing that was happening with my wife. You ask her, how are you doing? I never felt better.
Wow.
But not because her brother, she was like, I understand. She was like, I understand that he died, but God, whatever, she would make sense of it in a strange way.
Yeah.
And she would feel, because she was having a maniac state that is with bipolar people go through, like they feel great and they can feel like shit.
Yeah.
So she was in the maniac part of it. So she was feeling awesome at the beginning. So it was 4 months. 2 months she was feeling awesome. 2 months she was feeling like shit. When she was feeling like shit, I thought, oh, she's getting better because she should feel like shit.
Yeah.
Because that happened. But she never came out of it. So a lot of people that have bipolar disease have this ending. More than people that go through depression. The suicide in bipolar is the percentage is higher, So yeah.
But more importantly, how did you begin your journey to recovery? How did you, what steps did you take, or how did you message yourself to,
I didn't do anything. It just happened miraculously. And it's kind of religious what I'm saying, but I'm sorry. But there's no method or anything like that.
Hey, everybody's different.
It just happened that things happened, So it was so hard. And I had to, in a way, die, right? I had to die because I was 18 years with her.
Yeah.
And I had a life with her. I was living with her. We decided not to have kids. So for me, she was so important. Because I had 2 kids. So it's okay. It's my 2 kids and her. Everything was her. She was my family.
Yeah.
I was working with her. We were working together. So we were so attached, so close together. So when that happened, I had to die and be born again. Otherwise, I had to let myself die, I had to let a lot of things die in me and be born again and be open to something new to be born, to appear, to happen. And that's a miracle, I think, because I don't know why I was open to a new thing. How? I think it has to do with your psyche, how you're I think psyche is when you're I don't know, when you're little, if you're stable, your psyche gets okay, you have some structure in your psyche that holds you.
I don't know. It works different for everybody. That's the way. That's the only thing I can say, because there's stability for me when I was little. You know, there's stability for everybody. But there are people who you don't expect to survive certain things if you're going by that. I know people who've been through, like who've been child soldiers, seeing some dark stuff they're not supposed to see as children,
Yeah,
and yeah, that is not something no normal person. There's no stability there, and
they
as
come
an
out well.
adult, and they now face some disaster or crisis, situation, they're still able to somehow find something somewhere. And some use religion. I'm not religious. I don't need religion for anything. I don't believe I need it for anything. But that's why I believe in addressing myself. But that is me. I'm not saying everybody should be me, because not everybody can be me. But I like what you said about you had to die. I think that's a very good way of saying it, because we all have to die and be reborn. I had to die for certain things. Some things had to die in my life. I'm not who I was when I was, even as 2 years ago, I'm not who that person, because some things from 2 years ago have died in me. They're no longer part of me. So I don't have to wait until some major crisis happen. But every day I'm cutting off some things I don't believe have a role to play in my life. And so I don't think there's a perfect answer for a situation like this. But it's like my guest who was born in Ghana but grew up in northern Nigeria, and his tribes, his family's name, the translation of his family's name is "What is death?"
What is that?
What is death?
Wow.
It doesn't have a perfect answer. So yeah, but it's one of those I guess conundrums life throws at us. But I believe the more people share their experiences and coming out of situations like this, the better we are, and the more we normalize the conversations on mental health, and not waiting for, or not taking mental health from the position of treatment only, but from prevention. Because a lot of our healthcare, especially like in America and many parts of the world, is only on treatment. But we need to start looking at prevention.
Yeah.
If you look at prevention, then the language will start changing on how we address mental illnesses.
Well, this guy that killed my brother-in-law, 15 days before, he was in a mental institution, and a judge said he could be released because he was okay. He was peaceful. He was not harm gonna do anything. He was in this mental institution because he went into a police station and make some kind of a mess in there, yelling. I don't know. So he was put in a mental institution, and then he was released. And 15 days later, he does this. So, yeah,
Do
I understand.
you know what happened to him afterwards?
I mean, he's in prison. The wife of Peter Megan, I don't know how to say she's not my sister-in-law. Okay, the wife of Peter, the guy who died, my brother-in-law, moved. He didn't want to meet his family again because they were living in the same neighborhood.
Oh wow!
With the parents of the murderer,
of the killer, yeah.
So he's in prison. She was told that he was going to be in prison forever. But as he's mentally disabled, he might go out of prison because he cannot be judged like a regular person, So she's a little bit scared because she's like, I told my kids that he was gonna, don't worry, because the kids, 8 years old, and the 8-year-old was so afraid.
That's a traumatic experience. To go through.
At
that age, he can retain memory.
Yeah, it was so hard for them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow, that is really. I feel for kids though. I really feel for kids You know, it's especially in this country the way we profit. It's so profit based the healthcare system. So getting that kid the health the treatment that they need and deserve. It's I hope they both kids get the proper treatment and everything that they need
Yeah.
to go through that situation because man, it's not easy. It's not easy to see your loved one pass away in front of you, and
Yeah, your father, right?
it's not. Yeah, but part of your moving forward was you found love again,
Mm-hmm.
and your part of your finding love is how you ended up in New York.
Exactly. Yeah.
So even though you arrived in New York officially at the best time ever.
Yeah. Before the pandemic. March
So,
2020.
yeah, you arrived in New York at the best time ever. No tourists, nothing to challenge you. You got New York all to yourself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
before we dive into enjoying New York without tourists, um, you want to share how you finally arrived in New York?
Yeah. So my former wife died November 3rd. I turned 40 on November 1st, 2 days prior to that.
Oh wow, and you
And
look 25 right now.
thanks.
I'm
Thanks.
21 by the way.
I tried. So, I mean, I was going through a roller coaster of nightmare emotions. It was so hard and so intense. The intensity of what I was. It's that I would say the common feeling that I was having. It's so intense what I was going through. And I was in therapy 24/7. I still am. This is for me like a therapy. Every chance I had to talk to someone about what happened in the building, I would talk to the neighbors, and the neighbors would tell me, I don't know if you want to know, but I heard that she was yelling because I didn't hear anything. I was in the bathroom. So they would tell me details. And I know for some people would be like, every chance I had to talk to someone, I would take it. I didn't care. I didn't care what they would say. I needed to talk to people. I needed to. And so I went to a therapist also. I was going once a week, but I was, for me, the therapist or a neighbor or the woman in the store in the corner that I knew I was living there for 20 years. So I knew everyone around there. So every neighbor, it's a 21st, I was living in the 21st floor. So it's a tall building with a lot of neighbors. We knew everybody knew us, right? So people were like, okay, you're going to move, right? You're going to move now. What are you doing in your apartment? You have to move. At first, when that happened, I moved to my mother's house. She lives 15 minutes from my house. And I went and I was in my mother's house. One day, I go out of my mother's house to the car, and the window was broken. They stole my stereo. And that was, let's say, 10 days, maybe 15 days after my wife died. And I said, I have to go back. I have a garage space.
Yeah.
And I took it as a signal, I have to go back and deal with what happened. And so I went back to the apartment. It was so hard. I went through I went back to the apartment and I had to face every corner of that apartment again without her. And remembering what happened, but I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna clean the house. I cleaned the house. That's very symbolic that's part of my what was part of my therapy. I'm gonna
Yeah.
clean this apartment, and so I clean it myself every little corner, and there was in the I remember I always remember in the balcony there was these black things. Well, yeah, these black things. I don't know how to say it, but black like powder in the balcony in the where you hold yourself. And I said, "What is that? What was she grabbing herself there? Like I had all this. What was she doing? What was her foot? What that was there?" Then I found out that it was the police because the police came right away
Yeah.
because they had to investigate what was happening. That they put some
Oh, they're taking
thing
prints and
to
all
take
that.
the
Yeah.
fingerprints. But so
Yeah, they won't. They don't. Of course, police don't do cleaning. Yeah.
but the thing is that I went back to the apartment, and so I and that was part, I would say, part of the therapy, right? A lot of people would say, okay, just leave. I'm not ready to leave. I'm not ready. I was married. I mean, I felt like I didn't get divorced. She died, okay, but I didn't get divorced. It's not the same. I'm still married. This is still my family. I had to get, she died, but I had to get divorced internally. I had to, there was a relationship that I had to end. Not only I had a person that died and I had to mourn a death, I also had to mourn a relationship. I had to get divorced. I had to like communicate with her internally,
Yeah.
separate, all that. I had to go through all those processes that don't come automatic. It's not automatic that it happens. So, but if I had to say something, I'm gonna say something that is very, maybe it sounds superficial, but I had to follow my instinct. I was gonna say my heart, but I had to follow my instinct. I
don't think that sounds superficial.
Okay. Yeah, because imagine in that situation, everybody's telling you what they would do, what you should do.
Yeah.
But
I probably would.
yeah, it's, and I would do the same to someone else, right? But I had to follow my instinct, and I didn't. It was not rational.
Yeah.
I had to follow I have to go back to the apartment. For example, I never quit my job that I was doing with my wife. My instinct was like, you don't quit your job. You don't stop it. Although I had some feelings about that, but no, you keep going. I don't know. That came out to me, and I kept going. I kept doing it, although I was so tired. My wife died 2 days ago, and I managed some apartments. I was managing some apartments in Argentina through Airbnb. I was doing Airbnbs. And I just changed the sheets, and I would take the sheets. I would do this automatic thing. And I would I loaded myself with tasks,
Kept yourself busy.
Kept myself busy. But instinctively, it was so hard. And I had to do that because I was working with my wife. And that was so hard because every apartment I would go, I would be with her. And I would talk with her, okay, this is the room where we're going to do this. We can do this. And so I had to go to every apartment and say, okay, now she's not here. And I had to deal with a lot of things that she was dealing with, myself. And so I had to...
So you had to deal with being alone now.
Being alone, and I had to transform every situation that had to do with her. Every apartment, every place. I had to talk to every friend of her. I was contacting her friends. Every chance I could, I was needing to talk to all the people that she knew. Some people wanted to talk to me. Some people didn't want to talk to me because people is. I didn't give a shit. I want to talk to people. I needed to talk to people. And so when a friend of my wife would call me, I was like, yeah, How I would talk about whatever. Or when a client from my work, I would talk to clients about whatever. I didn't care if they rented an apartment, they didn't rent. I would hear her personal experiences. I would be my ear would be open for them, and I would tell my experience. They would listen to me. So I would say that one thing that saved me or that helped me was engaging with people and communication.
Yeah.
Communication, I would say. Yeah, communication. That's one thing that helped me. Another thing that helped me is music. I was playing music at the time.
So were you in a band?
I was in a couple of bands
Okay.
with the Bolivian community and the Peruvian community.
Oh, okay.
And I'm Argentinian, so it's so different. It's so different. This culture and this community, I would play for them in their communities. With them, it's like going to another planet. It's like you travel. I don't know if here you have the same thing, that you go somewhere that it looks like another planet.
Like if you go to Queens, Astoria is very Colombian.
Yeah.
And if you go to Bay Ridge, a lot of Russians. Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, yeah. So, and there's some of, I've got the part of Brooklyn that has Haitians also. And yeah, so probably something like that.
Yeah, so it was so different, and I'm so different than I look different. It's like the cultures are so different that I was not judged or looked at in the same way that the people I knew, my family, they were all fine and friends, but that was different because they didn't relate in the same way to what was happening to me. They didn't even care much. So in that world, what happened to me didn't matter. So I was in that space, in that music, I was not important at all. I was not. I was no one. I was just a player. I was just playing my trumpet. Wow. And the important thing was the music and the people dancing and partying. What happened to me? Who cared about? No one cared about. And that made me like have a break. So I was having those breaks.
Yeah.
So that's saved me. So every weekend I would play so much. I would get into. Can you play? I can play. What are you gonna pay? I don't care what you're gonna pay. I can play. I can play here. I can play there. I would play in the morning. Then I would play in the afternoon, and then I would play during the night. Then I would sleep what I could, and then I would go to work. I would work with my partner, and I was so busy, so tired, But you asked me how I ended up in New York, right?
Yeah. That's beautiful. You shared that. I like it.
So eventually, I was in this roller coaster of things going on, therapy, 24/7.
Yep.
Therapy. The music was therapy. My friends were therapy. My work was a therapy. Everything was a therapy. And I found it myself that I didn't want to be at home. I didn't feel right. So I went in my apartment. And so I wanted to get out,
Yeah.
But I didn't want to, I knew that I had to leave that place. So I always remember a friend that told me, why don't you go somewhere else? And my answer was, where am I going to go? I can get away from the place. I know where the place I have to leave, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
I don't have it's not
a destination.
Because I told this friend, if I leave now, I'm just leaving a place, but not going anywhere. I need to go I need to find where I'm gonna go now. It's symbolically, not just physically.
Yeah.
Right? So, following my instinct, my brother-in-law was in Cuba at the time. So my other brother-in-law. So my former wife were 3 brothers, 3 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 Agustin, Peter that died, and my wife. So Agustin, the third one that is alive, the only one alive now, was in Cuba. And he said, "Why don't you come?" He was doing some bicycle trips there, and I said, "Yeah, let's go. I needed. Part of my therapy was talking to people close to Eugenia was my former wife, so close to her. So her brother, I said, okay, I'm going to Cuba. To a friend that we have together with my former wife in New York, Pablo. And then I wanted to visit my brothers-in-laws who died, my brother-in-law's family in Tampa. So I went to those 3 places. First to Cuba, then to New York, then to Tampa. And that's how I ended up in New York. Then first I went to Cuba and I spent 2-3 weeks with him, riding our bicycles through the roads and talking, sharing. I needed to share. And I was out of my house. And I was feeling, when you're somewhere else, I was in another country, another culture, what happens to you matters less, right? You are not in your context. You get out of your problem, right?
Yeah.
The problem was when I came back. When I came back from that trip, I went back home. It was so painful to go back to that. Everything in me was saying, you need to go, get out of there. But how? Where? It's not just moving, physically renting another apartment, but it's symbolically, like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? But in New York, I met my actual wife in that trip. So my brother-in-law had a friend in New York. That's my wife. And my brother-in-law, I mean, the one that was in Cuba, Agustin. And he told me when I was in Cuba, can you go get me a bike U-Lock that I sent to her to bring to Argentina? Well, when you go to New York, he says. I said, no, my friend Pablo, my friend in New York, lives upstate, 1 hour and a half. I'm not going to Manhattan. I didn't even care about going to Manhattan. I was going upstate with my friend, staying there 4 days. I'm not going, but she's so nice. You might like her, he said. He showed me the picture. Oh, okay. If I go to Manhattan, I'll contact her. And I did. I contacted her February 14th, I think. It's
oh, wow.
Valentine's Day, right? So I went to her work, and she told me, we can meet after work. And I said, no, I don't have time to meet after work. I was like...
You beginning to sound like the German in this story.
So I went to her work, and she gave me the bike lock, and I told her, do you want to come? My friend Pablo was a musician, had a musician friend from Argentina that was playing tango in Brooklyn. Do you want to come tonight to see this tango show in Brooklyn? To my actual wife, the first day I met her, I told her, okay, maybe I can try. I just tried, and she came. And that day, the next day, I had to fly to Tampa the next day. So I had to go to my friend's house, Pablo, where my suitcase is, and he lives 1 hour and a half from the city.
Yep.
And then come back the next day. At midday was my flight. But the previous night was the tango show. My friend Pablo was coming with me, but he was with a car. And we were going back that night after the show, let's say 10 p.m., something like that. We were going back to his apartment, to his house upstate. I said to him, I'm not going back. I was so drunk also because I was drinking beers there. I'm not going back. But you have to go back. Then tomorrow you have a flight. And I asked Basia, my wife, can I stay at your place? And she said, but you have a flight tomorrow? I don't know. And so I said, it's okay. I mean, I was like in this mindset where you don't care really much about anything, or you live the moment. I was
Yeah.
like living the moment, in any other case, I would say no. I would not do anything like the way I did things on those days. So I said to my friend, okay, I'm just gonna stay with her, and she said, well, okay, you can stay, but then you have to go back, take a train, because I had to take that flight the following day. So I had to learn how to take a train from, how do you call the train station?
From the subway.
No, the train station to upstate.
Dang, what's it called? The Metro?
Yeah, the Metro North.
Metro North.
Yeah, well,
I've been taking that like forever now.
I had to do that at 5 a.m., the next morning. So I stayed at her place. I tried, but nothing happened. Nothing happened with my wife that day. I tried, but we stayed in touch, and we started talking. And 1 month later, she came to Buenos Aires. For the first time, she would fly to Argentina. She didn't know Argentina.
Wow.
1 month later, she came to Buenos Aires. And, wow. And it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, let's go to the end. I have a daughter, right, with her now. And it all started there. So if you ask me, how did you do it to get out of your situation? I don't know, man. I didn't do anything.
I know. It's called tango.
It was a tango, yeah.
Tango night. I'm telling the audience now, if when the pandemic is over, ask your date to a tango night. It works. Yeah, you have proof.
Yeah.
All right, we're running out of time. So
one thing, I would not. It would not be able to do this.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, right?
There's virtual tango nights, I guess, right?
That's it.
We're not giving up tango easily. So if you can't find one, hit me up. We'll organize a tango night for you guys. You just have to pay me. It's $20, $30.
Okay.
Mariano can dance tango. He'll play some instruments.
Sure.
Beginning to round up. Last two questions that I ask. We'll definitely do a part 2 to dive more into the episodes. How's the pandemic been for you? You moved to New York full time March 2020.
Yes.
So, but you had already visited New York.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic.
Yes.
So you saw how New York was, and then you now moved to New York just before lockdown. So
yes.
How does New York feel to you now?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say because I came during 2019 and came several times, but I came to New York to live, to stay for good from March 2020, and then the pandemic started. But I also in May my daughter was born, so everything together.
Yeah.
And because my daughter was born, I had to stay home anyway.
That's right.
So I didn't get to go to the city much. I didn't really do much what's called tourism or visiting places. I didn't even really had to do that. I didn't even care, right? So I don't know if I can compare. I know that I went to Brooklyn Bridge with my bike a couple of times during the pandemic. It was amazing. No one was there. Nobody.
I should have done. Yeah, I should have done that. It's I can't remember the last time I was on Brooklyn Bridge.
No one. It was no one at the beginning. Wow. It was so nice.
Yeah, because that's why I haven't been on Brooklyn Bridge. The last time I was there, I was like, ugh, I can't do this. I can't do this. All right, Mariano. I
All
can't
right.
thank you enough for being on the podcast. This
Yeah,
has
thank
been
you for having
a
me.
very special episode. Thank you for sharing your journey and your very personal details with us. And yeah, but I just love everything about you, and can't wait to interview Vasila to hear more about her side of the story. If you were that impressive, because we all say like when Verena came in, she said I wasn't that impressive, but
Let's see. Yeah, it will be
but
nice. Let's see what she says.
yeah, we'll hear what Vasila says. But no, you're an awesome guy, and I appreciate you all the time, and thank you very much. And for the final question, what would you like to leave the audience with? It could be a favorite quote from a book you've read, or a song you like to sing, or it could be just something you like to leave the audience with.
Okay, no, I'm gonna leave you with a phrase
Mm-hmm.
that I read when I was coming here, that I wrote in my roller coaster days. That I wrote, even to die, you have to learn.
I like that.
Yeah, I had to learn how to die. So yeah, that's the phrase I would leave.
Even to die, I have to learn.
Well, I wrote it in Spanish.
Say it in Spanish,
It
then.
makes better sense,
Yeah,
maybe. I
say
don't know
it in
if I'm
Spanish.
saying it right in English. Hasta morir se aprende. That's in Spanish.
It's really short.
It's shorter and it sounds nicer. I don't know, in English it sounds good.
Say it again in Spanish.
Hasta morir se aprende.
Hasta morir.
Hasta a morir se aprende.
Hasta a morir. Prende.
Se aprende.
Se prende. Alrighty. So appreciate you, Mariano. Thank you very much. Do you have anything you'd like to plug in, or anyone you'd like to plug in? Give a shout out.
No, it's okay.
All right. Okay, so for everyone listening, don't forget to join us for the next episode. Thank you, and continue to give showing the love. And I'll catch you at the next episode. Thank you for the privilege of your company. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.